Hi, I'm Gabe Deukmaji, the Renovation Specialist with CitySmartLiving, and I'm here to talk to you today about some fantastic things that you need to know about owning your first home. There's a lot of things that people don't realize are going to be important as far as maintenance goes, and you need to kind of plan ahead when you're thinking about the budget for your new home. So a few of the things that I want to talk about are the anticipated renovation expenses and repair expenses, as well as replacement timeframes on some key systems in your home. So I've actually taken the time and written a few of them down here, and I wanted to discuss them with everybody so that you can kind of plan ahead a little bit while you're looking for your new house. So one of the big ones that everybody forgets sometimes to pay the most detailed attention to is your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. It's usually called your HVAC system, and bear in mind, depending on the age of your home, it may actually also include a radiator heating system or a baseboard electric heat system. There's a number of ways that people have done these systems over time, and varying efficiency levels with each one, as well as varying lifespans. But if we're talking about the most common one, it's going to be your forced air heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. So there's two different kinds of systems. There's heat pumps, which is basically an air conditioning system that can run forwards and backwards, which means it generates air conditioning, cool air inside the house in the summertime, and it generates warm air in the wintertime. And the way it does that is by having a reverse valve that switches in the system. But those systems, because they're not effective everywhere, you need to have a certain climate for those. So here in the Metro Washington, D.C. area, where CitySmartLiving does most of our stuff, we actually have a lot of heat pump systems. They're very common here. They're really common in homes that do not have gas lines. So the home we're standing in now here in Falls Church, that's in renovation, as you can hear in the background, is actually one of those properties that has a heat pump system. So a heat pump, you should anticipate a 10 to 15 year lifespan on the overall system. Now bear in mind, all these estimates that I'm going to give you are based primarily on average uses. There's some systems that are going to go way beyond the lifespan that we talk about here. There's some systems that might die in a year or two. So all depends on how you use them and how you maintain them, but these are some general guidelines that you can bear in mind. So heat pumps 10 to 15 years, that's on the overall system. There's an outside compressor and an inside unit to a heat pump system. The outside system may die a little bit sooner. They might be more like 7 years. And again, it depends on how exposed to the elements it is and how well you maintain it. If we're talking about a furnace, so a gas-fired furnace, which is a blower fan and a heat exchanger with gas fire burning in it. That furnace is actually the longest lasting of forced air products. So you're looking at between 15 and 20 years on average for a furnace system. The air conditioning only system. Now, when you have a furnace system, a gas-fired furnace, you're also going to have an air conditioning system that kind of works in tandem with it. So the blower fan from the furnace is actually going to be blowing air across the air conditioning coils. Even though you're not using the furnace to heat the house, you're still using the same blower fan. So the furnace system, has the longer lifespan of 15 to 20 years, but the air conditioning system is still close to what a heat pump runs at, somewhere close to 10 to 15 years. So just things to plan for as you're budgeting for your home. A rule of thumb that I work with all my clients on, and so that they can fully understand, is to budget 1% of the home's value per year towards renovations and repairs. Just because you never know what's going to come up. There's going to be a roof problem, there's going to be a window problem, there's going to be brick mortar that chips out. All the little things that happen over time to a house, if you're budgeting for it and you're ahead of the curve, is going to be no problem in the grand scheme of things if you're prepared for it. So remember that 1% per year of the home's value is going to put you in a position where when the time comes and you need to renovate that new bathroom because the old one's just too vintage, we can't handle it anymore, you're going to be able to do it with that budget if you've set it aside. So some other important systems in the house, water heaters. I actually had one of my clients, I went through his home with him yesterday to just go through some of the things that he can anticipate paying for over the next 5 to 10 years while he's living in his new home. And the water heater was a question that he had. An important note is that gas water heaters tend to last longer than electric water heaters. It's just a product of the way that they heat. And also an important note is depending on your type of water. So if you're on city water, like we are here in Falls Church, like we are in most of metropolitan Washington, D.C., you're going to have less heavy things like sediments and stuff that are inside of your water. So when you have that, the water heater is going to last a longer time. If you're operating on a well system like the areas of Great Falls, a lot of Potomac, Maryland, a lot of the really large estate homes, plenty of parts of McLean, they're going to have these water systems that are operating off of a well, and there's going to be just more sediment, more iron, more minerals in that water. And that's going to make the water heater last a little bit less time or require more maintenance. But if we're talking about a gas water heater, we're running usually between the 8 to 12 year range. And if we're talking about an electric water heater, we're generally talking between 6 and 10 years. It really will depend on how well you maintain the system and how good the system was that you got. But ultimately, these are not terribly expensive items. An entire water heater system can be installed professionally for about $1,000, depending on how big you're going. If you're going for a bigger system that's more than the 50 gallons, or that needs to be specialized to something else, then you'll be dealing with more money. Roofs. So if you're buying a single family home or a townhome, it's important to understand whether it's your responsibility or somebody else's to take care of the roof. In a lot of townhome communities and condominium communities, the roof is part of the association management. In fee simple townhomes and in most single family homes, it's going to be the individual owner's responsibility. So roofing depends on material. They can vary quite a bit between cedar and slate and architectural shingles and regular shingles and copper. They're all different types of roofing material, but most commonly what we're seeing is an asphalt shingle. If you're looking at most roofs, that's what they are. And that asphalt shingle typically ranges from about 15 to 25 years, depending on how nice of a shingle they got. So usually builders are putting on 15-year roofs, just as a general rule. They're not trying to upgrade you too much. So just things to bear in mind. Typically when a house gets to be about 10 to 15 years old is kind of the time that it starts coming due on a lot of these items. So windows. My client who I talked with yesterday, actually he bought an older home, but thankfully the previous owners had already replaced the windows. That's fantastic because windows are not an inexpensive item. You know, you can budget a rough number of $500 to $600 per window for replacement. That's a lot of money when you start talking about a single family home with a lot of windows, and that's not even getting fancy with bay windows and transom windows and large tall windows. So windows are usually good though. The good news is the windows are usually good for 20 to 30 years. So that's going to do you a lot of favors on that. As far as kitchen appliances, you can see we actually have some new kitchen appliances going in here. Kitchen appliances are a unique thing. I'm sure you all have friends, family, grandparents, aunts and uncles who still have their, gas range from 1982, that's a classic. It's an avocado and it's still sitting in their kitchen. They really depend. Most of the modern appliances are built with computer boards in them, and that tends to be the fail point. So refrigerators tend to be the one that die the most. They're the most finicky. As a matter of fact, a lot of home warranty companies have started separating out refrigerator coverage. So it's an important thing for you to check with your agent, especially if you're working with one of my agents on the CitySmartLiving team. We'll be sure to take good care of you and make sure that you know that information as to whether a home warranty is including that or not, because we definitely want to make sure you're covered. But kitchen appliances, you generally end up replacing them in about 10 years. Some of them will die faster than that, and some of them will last much longer than that. Really, your ovens and your ranges tend to be your least finicky items. Your dishwashers and your refrigerators and your microwaves tend to be the ones that die the most frequently. Garbage disposals really depends on how you use them as to how long they last. Remember with a garbage disposal, a good trick to know is if you wouldn't eat it, don't put it down a garbage disposal. So eggshells and bones and rinds and peels, never a good idea to send down a garbage disposal. It's just going to wear it out. And then the last thing that I wanted to kind of cover is bathrooms and kitchens. A lot of people really forget that older homes have a certain character and charm, but that as time passes, it's important to stay with the times. Most people, aren't driving the same car for 60 years. So why would you expect that they would want the style of their home to stay the same for 60 years? Now there are timeless bathrooms. I'm not gonna, underestimate the value of some of these beautiful marble baths that have been done in some of these great homes in DC. But an important note to have is you should plan on updating your bathrooms every 10 to 15 years. 10 years is kind of on the short end. That's you kind of being a very big fashionista. And 15 years is something that's a little bit more realistic, but somewhere along that time frame. So hopefully that was helpful, and I hope that you guys give us a call if you have any questions about anything. I'm always happy to help. As a matter of fact, we have contractors who can handle pretty much any of these things for you. So don't hesitate, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and like us here on YouTube. Thanks so much, and appreciate you stopping by.